All right, we're back at it, DMV Wholesale. So, what's up, man? What's your name and where you from?
My name is W. Ellington Felton, aka Wes Felton, and I'm from Washington, D.C.
Cool. And for people that don't know your brand, can you tell them a little bit about your brand and kind of how you started with it?
Well, my brand is it goes by the name of Art Hurts. It's a company and creative, just kind of house that I created back in 1999. I'm an OG. Um, I'm a musician as well, and so what we used to do back in the day was instead of like doing some kind of like massive bulk amount of like t-shirts or your typical merch when you're on the road, we would do these very like limited edition, like small batch sweatshirts or t-shirts. It would encompass like kind of like the punk rock tradition,
Mm.
where there's some punk rock artists that historically would like get a Sharpie and like before they get on stage, literally just write whatever they want to wear that night, and it stems from the tradition of that, where a little bit more of like the creative chaos versus like the more uniformed
Mm.
style. So that's the brand and like the origin of it.
It seemed like, nowadays too, a lot of brands, especially streetwear that's coming up, they kind of try to encompass that too. Like,
Yeah,
have their limited drops, their seasonal drops and things like that. But you had that game plan like 20, 30 years ago.
yeah, yeah. It's the idea that you know I'm almost 50 years old, so I've seen a lot of things come and go, in that even in that short time of life, and it's important that you always know kind of it's going to always be that challenge between technology and man when it comes to creativity.
Mm.
It's going to get and as time as time goes on, that's going to always be kind of like the challenge. And so it's important that creatives try to think almost more like in the spirit of Sankofa. So Sankofa is like this concept that there's this African bird that moves forward while looking back. And so it's important that you don't get complacent at time periods or what's trendy or anything like that,
Mm.
but you constantly trying to move forward, but grabbing aspects and elements of your history that you bring in towards it. And so I think at the end of the day, when it comes to labels and brands, um, it always is going to come back full circle. You got to always go back to the origin and essence of it. And that was always kind of my thing. Um, when you as a kid, what's the first thing they do? They put a piece of paper and some crayons down in front of you, and then you go to work. And then you got some artists who are it's immediate. It's just like any art. Then you got some who might have a different perspective, a different approach. And so what I try to do is I try to incorporate those elements while also acknowledging like artists and figures um, of the past and even sometimes the present.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about like childhood, growing up, and then we'll get into like the present and the future for your brand too. But
Yeah.
let's take it all the way back to like when you're growing up. You said DC, right?
Yeah.
Growing up in DC, and you're into art, fashion, music, all these things. So what was it like growing up in the surroundings, particularly being in DC?
Well, in the era and time period I grew up in DC, it was very interesting. Our style for me growing up, we were very much into like a clean aesthetic. So you could like you could wear like Guess jeans that had like the little pocket, the pencil pocket
Mm.
with a white tee and some penny loafers. Like as crazy as that might sound, or you might see somebody that might rock like you know um, some K Swiss or like some Stan Smiths. you know, in the era I grew up in, drug culture had a very heavy influence in style and fashion. So whatever the drug dealers were wearing, they were the ones who popularized a lot of stuff. So you had these specific brands like a Moss Brown, K Swiss, Sergio Tacchini. A lot of those things still kind of blended in, but the main thing was if you wore white sneakers, that was a big deal. That said a lot. That said like multiple things. That said either you had money or you were someone that was feared at such a level that you feel comfortable going out and wearing white and wearing, you know what I'm saying? So you had those aesthetics. As time went on, then you had, cats uptown. Because I grew up in Northeast, in like what they call the Deanwood area now, and you had cats uptown who began to kind of explore colors and introduce splashes of just something different. So you had like Madness, that it was like a big deal, to try to get a hat. You know what I'm saying? The bucket hats they had. It was like one of them things that, like most childhoods, your mom be like, no, I ain't spending that much money on, and probably it might have not even been, I don't know, it might have been $20 or something. But at that time, to pay $20 for some bucket hat with just some letters on it, and then some label of some company you never, that ain't even no famous brand, it was, you had to beg for that, or you had to have the money or the resources to get that. And then eventually, like most things, you could then eventually go to the mall, and there were places like little Chinese stores or places, stands, kiosks that begin to start making their own little knockoff versions of it. Again, that goes back to what I'm saying, the technology, the accessibility. It's like as an artist, you have to constantly try to figure out a way to, compete with that, because ultimately that's what it came up. So we had a very interesting introduction to independent brands at a very early age in DC. That's just like that was part of the culture. And then you had other crews like Shooters and all these various We Are One. You had all these various other brands that came out that then begin to incorporate like the fabric paint. So the whole thing of like, there was this era of cats, but they were really making it puffy, puffy. I incorporate fabric paint on stuff that I do, but I treat it as if it's almost like I'm silk screening it in that instance. So when I put stuff down, I'm immediately getting on it to lay it on there flat. Whereas in DC, there was this movement of cats that was making it so that way it's puffy, so that it really is, you can feel it has a texture, and sometimes you might miss a piece and it might stick out and rise a little loud, bigger. And so once you started seeing that, that's when you really saw more and more independent brands, because it let them know like, okay, I might not have the access or the resources to what was super expensive at that time, like silk screen and getting your shit printed or getting it manufactured somewhere. This at least gives the creative mind an opportunity to like, oh, so now I figured out, oh, this, you mean this how I can make it and it don't wash off or it don't bleed on, And so growing up, you saw all of this stuff for me. And as time went on, you begin to see like, a lot of companies and brands follow that blueprint, whether they knew it or not. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And so, like specifically, at what point in your childhood would you say like you had that creative bug to be like, okay, I'm recognizing all these.
Man, it's so funny. Like, I remember one time my dad, it used to be this store called Garfinkel's. It was considered a fancy joint. and there was this mall called Landover Mall that had like, it was sprinkled with like high end stores at one point, right? And it was this one store called Garfinkel's. And I never forget one time that they were like, they were going out of business. It was like the beginning of that phase of time when things just started, big stores started falling off, right? And so I just remember my dad bought like, at that time I didn't know, but it was basically like the what do they call it? They call it like Dutch cloth, Dutch wax cloth, which is basically African prints, right? And it was some shirts that had these, obviously like who, and it was some crazy price. He got it for some like stupid reduced price, but bought a bunch of them. And I remember he just gave them to me. And I was thinking, okay, what am I gonna do with all these shirts? And I would say I was probably between the age of like 9 and 11. Like it was right around that time. And I just remember some of the patterns and prints of it. I remember it being circles. And I just remember first thing, just cutting out the circles on a bunch of the shirts. So then I just had those. And then I started taking them and I was like, I'm gonna find some jeans. And then I began to put just by hand, sew them on parts of the joint and just wear them to the school. And people be like, what's those? You ain't know that. I'll be like, nah, this me. You know what I'm saying? But the cool thing was that he had a bunch of them. I had the shirt that I could rock to basically kind of make it an ensemble. So when I eventually went to junior high at Alice Dill, at that time, we still had a class called home economics. So they taught us it was required to learn how to sew and learn how to cook. So, and every year you had to present a fashion show. So that was when I kind of got really locked in, like, oh, and I remember at that time in junior high, I was trying to make some like Gap looking shit, some shit that like blacks didn't really rock at that time because I was like, oh, this is how I stand out. So I remember making a short outfit. So it was like, plaid shorts with the solid colored t-shirt and just things like that, man. From a fashion level. And then as I got older, I kind of started getting more into like my acting and more of my family business, which is music, because my dad was a jazz musician as well. So that took a bunch of time, but I always had the agenda of like, oh, we don't gotta go buy it, let's make it. You know what I'm saying?
So how would you say like now compared to back then, like your creativity, how has it evolved? How has it changed? Has it like kind of stayed the same, would you say, in terms of like
Yeah,
your
well,
creativity?
I think that my stuff, it goes up and down. There's some moments where I might do something that appears a little bit more conservatively aesthetic. So I might let's say if I have like a hat made, I might make the hat, um, I might get it like embroidered and it's just clean with just a very simple font, but the hat might be like that burnt uh, orange hunter pattern, just to kind of throw it off a little bit. Um, and but the through line, I think for my stuff is it's gonna always be like I say, it's like a creative chaos thing. It's one of the things to like make people kind of either hate it or love it, but also it's gonna make some kind of statement. So like for example, like this shirt that I have on right here, it's a very specific. I did like maybe 7 of these, like various sizes, right? And they all different, right? But this is just like to pay homage to another artist. And it's this Japanese artist who incorporates circles and polka dots. You've probably seen her stuff. She's this Japanese woman. They have a lot of her stuff in art galleries, and it's a big deal. You've seen people probably on social media taking pictures and like some of her art exhibits like where there's like all these lights that are just surrounding people, or a room that's just full of polka dots. So what I'll do is I'll do like a series like this, and then it's with the expectation that, okay, when I put it out, or if there's specific artists or people that I just want to gift it to, because I also want it to be, like almost like a wearable art. And so the through line is always going to be acknowledging other people, but also kind of teaching in the process too, versus going for stuff that might necessarily people understand at first, or there's a specific target market. Um, you know, that's that is more kind of where I'm leaning more, versus just trying to make stuff and put stuff out there. I now kind of focus more on like, okay, there are artists that I've worked with, and I know where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make a set of hats for them because I know they on tour right now, or they doing like a press run, so that way they kind of can appear. Like there's this one random hat I did that like Kyrie Irving like rocked one time at an interview, at a presser. Those are the type of things that I kind of look more for, where it's not necessarily just having people wear your stuff, but it's people who also have certain political views. They're outspoken in they outspoken outside of the industry that they make money of. You know what I'm saying? So it's become a little bit more catered.
So when you're creating for, let's say, someone else, or you're trying to bring someone's vision to life, how's that creative process like?
What I do is I try to like I usually have them send me like 10 bullet points. Just like, and that could be anything. That could be a combination of colors. It could be a combination of like, say they're from a specific neighborhood, or they're from a specific region of the country or world. And then based on those things, I'll then go and do research of like images based on like, what does that neighborhood look like? What's the architecture look like around there? What's you know what I'm saying? Is there like a Latino community that's influencing? Is there, I have more of like a approach, because my degree is in theater, is in acting. And so the way they trained me at Carnegie Mellon is, even if it's the smallest role, you want to do the research to create the backstory, so that way you're actually living that character versus acting. So when I make stuff for somebody specifically, I try to do the research for them too, unless they say I want something that specifically has this, you know. Yeah.
Could we talk a little bit about, I mean, you just brought up the theater side, the acting side, and then you also said you had a background in being a musician, so your family was, full of musicians and things. So could you talk a little bit about those things, and then how does that correlate to fashion? You gave one example right now, which I think was amazing, which is, I think, essentially world building and being able to build a world. Like, for example, on your shirt, it's a whole world right there.
Yeah.
You just put us on the polka dots and circles, and a dope, which Japanese artist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did the music and the theater and the acting, these different creative fields, tell us a little bit about that, and then how that like correlated with the art?
Well, I started acting probably when I was like 14. I was on a TV show called Teen Summit on BET. So I was a regular on there for 3 years. So that was my introduction to the entertainment business. So I got the opportunity to be around a lot of, legends in certain respect, who were building their, careers at that time. So, there's like videos and footage of me as a teenager talking and interviewing like Diddy and and Puffy. I mean, he has like a million names at this point, but literally like Big's like first TV appearance. Like, I had the honor of being there and experiencing that and witnessing that. The Far Side, Arrested Development, all these different like hip hop, when hip hop was really like cutting its teeth. And for DC rap rap didn't become really cool in DC until I would say the late 80s and maybe 90s. Even if that, there were still small pockets of people doing it. And so, yeah, I always embraced rap culture, and I always liked the way there's these guys named 3 Times Dope that was out of Philly. Because DC, when I was growing up, DC and New York, you ain't really rock. We ain't rock with each other. Not because it was like real beef, but because drug culture was so heavy. And when I was growing up, there was we. That's kind of what dictated what we rocked with versus what we didn't rock with. And so when you hear those stories of like New Yorkers coming down here and doing bad business with, but again, with that said, we saw the culture, we saw the style. So 3 Times Dope, they was from Philly though. But what I liked about them, they looked like they dressed like regular dudes. They weren't as flamboyant and loud as New York guys, but they were rhyming, and they were rhyming about girls. They were rhyming about like women using you for money, and rhyming about, yo, I'm the dopest this, or I'm the best at that. And at that time, like that messaging spoke to me, because I could relate. And it was the first time, I heard and saw like, oh, you could be fly, but you could talk about other things. And so, I've been writing as a child and wrote as a teenager. And then I went on to study acting at Carnegie Mellon, because I wanted the actual training, and I like the I like the technical aspect and the academic aspect of art. Like I know I enjoy knowing the psychology of why people create things, and they may think like, oh, I'm creating this new thing out of nowhere, but they don't know that there's like certain DNA coding and lineage that's in their system from centuries that led up to them creating that thing. So it's kind of like, it could be something as simple of why we read, why a person comes on stage. Most of the time they enter from stage left. You know why? Anybody got a guess? Because that's how we read. So psychologically, a person's natural instinct whenever something's about to start is to start this way. Now, in other countries that read the opposite way, it's the opposite. So that's just giving you an example of psychologically a technique that is used specifically for the purposes of influence. And so I enjoy the psychology of acting. I enjoy the psychology of music, and understanding how music affects people. And so I've just always tried to create things that were a little bit more socially conscious or politically driven, when it comes to all of my stuff. So if you check out any of my work, even like I've done like Tiny Desk, and even the Tiny Desk that I've done, it's a very like politically charged material. It's not, a party. So that's just kind of like how I started and what I continue to kind of pursue.
Okay, so I got a few questions, but first,
Okay.
since you talked about the being politically charged, does that come from just by growing up in DC, or does that more so come from like,
Absolutely. Like people don't understand that DC has gradually become a little bit more desensitized creatively.
okay,
A lot of people, like most people in entertainment, they chasing something. They chasing the dream or the perception of success. And so there's different ways to define success. For me, success is being able to make your impact, do what it is that you want to do, while taking care of your people that you need to take care of or feel that you're supposed to take care of. And that's what you're doing. And you enjoy what you do. That's success. But unfortunately, in the creative world, people, the definition of success is fame. And so, I just personally never really, I don't subscribe. I really don't subscribe to the idea of chasing, chasing fame as the validation. And I'm kind of getting off what was your original question
It was
again?
the politically
Oh yeah,
charged.
so
Yeah.
politically, a lot of people don't understand that DC, that was part of our sound. That was our part of our appearance. Was that there was always some type of socially conscious messaging or programming. So there's at least a table. That's one thing I'll give props to what I see right now with the current like free DC and like the go-go movement that I'm talking about the ones like Mochella and them that are in the streets, because they are aware that that's the real history of DC arts and culture. And that is actually protest music, because DC has always been Babylon Central. They test everything on us. They try it all on us, from the military. They've had the military come take over DC multiple times. This ain't the first time historically it's done that. Even the medical cannabis experiment. That's something, compared to other cities, we're the first of that. Our liquor laws, all of these things are these constant like experimentation. And traditionally, DC artists would react to that. You might think a song is about one thing, but it's really them talking about the times. And 9 out of 10 of the times, whoever was the ruling class at that time, because we see it. They call DC like the ugly Hollywood. Like that's what they call it in the industry. Like that's what it's, and that's not just in the entertainment industry, but also the political world. We're called the unattractive Hollywood, because DC is also a place where you can come and like become famous through politics, restaurant owners. It's a group called Bad Brains that they got banned in DC. They got banned because when they was on MTV, they were asking him like, yo, tell us about DC. Why you guys leave DC and came to New York and went to LA? He was like, because the only way you can succeed in DC is either in politics or a restaurant owner. And it's been like that for a long time. So I share all of that because there's a resistance that traditionally comes out of DC's, music culture. So everything's political.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, especially, in hip hop I really think the essence of it is like rebellious music and kind of being outspoken. So with that being said, right, what's your opinion on the current state of, let's say, fashion, music, and entertainment? Like what are some of the good things you like?
I
Some of
think
the
fashion, I'm really excited about fashion nowadays because, I think people got to understand that like it takes time sometimes for people to like open up to things. And I'm old enough to remember a time period where shit was still very conservative. It was very like, this is only one way to do it. It's only 5 companies that you gotta go through in order to get it done, or this or that. Where now, you see a lot more brave forms of expression of fashion, especially in the communities of color, because historically for so long we were always conditioned. Boy, you better be clean, or you better, suit and tie. Like you look back in the day, black folks used to have to put on suits or put on ties just to go to the grocery store, because it was this perception that you look sharp, stay sharp. Whereas other cultures, and more specifically white cultures, they were able to do whatever. They could cut a mohawk. They could pierce their nose, and ironically, these are things that they they appropriated from black and brown culture. You know what I'm saying? And turned it into fashion. But for the longest time, we were told that, oh, you can't dress like that, or you can't, because you won't be allowed to, you won't be respected, or you won't be. And so that's a very real thing that now I notice that's not a stress that people have to worry about too much. Now, if you're trying to get into certain fashion houses and you're trying to be, that, even still with that, that stuff is not even as traditional as it used to be. So I love it.
What about music?
Music, music's interesting. No, music's cool. It's a lot of great music that's being made out here right now. And I'm actually, I've always been one of those people that, one, I always work with like younger folks or younger artists. Like that's one thing I've never been anti. I'm not one of them old heads that you're gonna be like. Now some of the shit I don't understand. I don't understand kind of like the psychology of it. I understand. Let me take that back. I don't understand. I understand the psychology of it from a corporation perspective and marketing perspective, but some of the stuff I still see, I don't think black people have to do. I don't think Latino people have to do. I don't think African people have to do in order to sell. It's a lot more. It's a lot more people selling themselves in public. Whereas back in the day, that went on behind closed doors. That if you did some shit, it was there. But nowadays, it's a little bit more of this, you know, shock value, and and it's contrived, where it's not coming from really genuine places. They just see something that works. But this is why you can't give up on the young folk, because the industry has always been like that. The industry has always had gatekeepers. The industry has always had people who, the most talented people are the ones that have the hardest time. The people who are the least talented are the ones that somehow end up becoming the gatekeepers. A lot of times, I'm telling you, you can go into some really famous rooms and like realize like, damn, it's some dumb motherfucker. Like, I'm the smartest motherfucker in here. You understand? But that's also by design. And so unfortunately, when you begin to erase history and you begin to belittle education, what that does is that creates entropy or entropic lifestyles. And what people don't know, if you don't know, entropic is basically like it's another word for chaos. But the difference with entropic chaos is you can pinpoint the source, and it's a micro thing. So it's almost like a microaggression that slowly but surely, it's like a disease that you could have got on top of, but then because you didn't get on top of it, it don't just give you a disease, it creates chaos in your body, right? And so I think that we live in a period of that as well, because of social media and people, everybody's a star. Everybody, once they created comment sections on websites, that's when it was a wrap, because everybody's a critic now. People are doing it more for a validation of others. And when you're talking about the creative realm and you're creating art, none of that stuff should matter first. The art is what matters first. And if you're a person who's creating and you're not, that's not what it's there for. If you no longer is doing it for that first, then you're doing it wrong. And so those are the artists I tend to like versus the artists that I don't like. And so it's a lot of dope art that's being made out here, but there's also a lot of bullshit that we are calling great. And it ain't, nah.
I think like one thing we touched on earlier when you were speaking about the music back in the day, even DC like specifically too, was like it was always protest music. It was always like some rebelliousness. It was like chaos as you mentioned, but it was like kind of controlled and focused, right? Whereas I feel like the music nowadays, particularly like around this area, is a lot of it is still is chaotic, but there's no so to speak enemy but each other.
Yeah,
Whereas back in the days, like you can like you said, kind of pinpoint like it's either the government or these systems or these like ideas that's really poisoning and attacking us. So we have to, you know, speak about it.
yeah.
Whereas nowadays, it's like I don't think anybody is speaking about anything that is really causing the harm or the destruction or anything, and it's like you're kind of attacking each other.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the art of war. That's again the art of war, where divide and conquer it's the most classic technique. It's a method that the weakest men on the planet have been able to rule worlds with that method because they physically brutally couldn't do it. So they was like, let me send this girl over there. Go go get close with him, right? Then the girl goes and get close with him. He don't know that she's setting him up for this guy, but then they start pillow talking, and then the next thing you know, chemistry starts happening. Then next thing you know, they're in love. So then the person who originally conspired, then next thing you know, he got to kill her, and these are how wars for centuries have started, things like that. And so you got to definitely understand that divide and conquer is always going to be like the most well practiced war technique ever. If I could convince you to hate everybody in this room and distract you, and your attention is only focused on them, the person who is behind you can easily just be like, can pickpocket you. They can steal from you, take your food, take your resource, because you're so preoccupied with your proximity. And that's why things like black on black crime and all that's all bullshit. Because you never hear them say white on white crime, right?
Right.
Because people kill based on proximity.
Right.
So if you live in a black community and you're a black person, of course the crime that's going to more than likely occur is going to be amongst themselves. And so that's also part of the design to create this perception that your op is like somebody in your community. When really your op is not in your op is down the street passing bills that's destroying the future of you and your grandchildren. Them your real ops. Them so homeboy across the street or down the block, that ain't your op. And so unfortunately, with the music culture, that's why my brand is called Art Hurts. It's because I believe that back in the late 70s or early 80s, I believe that they made a conscious decision to weaponize black art, culture, and entertainment moving forward. It's very much used for the agenda of division. And now with social media, it's at a rapid race. With everything we see on social media, there's always some shit, black woman versus black man. Okay, you keep them fighting, they can't recreate, they can't reproduce, they can't have families. So you've already eliminated the nucleus of the community right there. So then you got these youngins where you're gonna have them, the thing about these youngins is they rebels without a cause. It's work for them to do. It's work we can have them doing. But the unfortunate trap which is often perpetuated through arts and culture, is that your people are the ops. And that's definitely what I will say is a negative aspect of current music and culture, which is false. And it's very specifically a technique at war of war that produces that.
So then, what would be your advice? Let's say looking forward past 2026 to what you got going on with your building, but what also would be your advice to the younger generation that's currently living in this world of
I would say what I say to everybody: the sooner you can lock in on something that you feel passionate about, just lock in on it. Just the sooner you can do it, because you're gonna get old. Trust me, I'm telling you. There's times where I wake up and I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh shit. Like, and I'm a healthy guy for the most part. You know what I'm saying? And so time is not on your side. The most valuable thing is time. Not money, not things, but time. Time, you gotta really be conscious of how you spend and use your time. And find other people who respect your time, but also like to spend their time the way you spend your time. Now, for the better, let's say. That's what I would just suggest. And be honest with who you want to be. Like, I gave a keynote speech at a school a couple weeks ago, and one of the points that I landed to them that even some adults took home was, don't change who you are. So if you started off as a kind person, moving forward, be kind. It's okay. If you are a drummer, keep drumming. If you're creative, keep creating. But the most dangerous, but also most unsuccessful people in our society are not necessarily people who succeeded, but it's the people who, when they failed, they didn't quit. So don't be a quitter, because we live in a society and culture of a lot of quitters out here on all levels. So that's what I would suggest is, don't be a quitter. It's okay to make mistakes, learn from the mistakes and get it in. For me, I have things I have coming. I'm still touring, still traveling. I have a group called the Crossroads, which is myself and an R&B singer named Raheem Devon. So we're working on a new project right now, which will be like our fourth project. And yeah, man, just out here trying to, I still work with the education team at Ford's Theater. Still going into classrooms, constantly trying to make my contribution into the future, while also maybe recruiting some new fans. You know what I'm saying? Because that's also important. You know what I'm saying? We can't forget about the young people, and our influences over them. Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for your time, your wise words of wisdom, the history, everything. Um,
Absolutely.
is there anything specific you got coming up this year? I know you shouted out some of the music
Yeah.
projects and some of the things, but particularly for your brand, you want to shout out before we step off?
So I've been working on this. Yeah, I've been doing a lot more painting, artwork wise, and I've been working on these like little small zines for like the last 2 years, where there's these little books that I literally have put art and little random things in them, that I plan on releasing this year. They're very special because it took a long it's taken years to finish them.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like taking years. So this is something that probably is going to be one of the hardest things creatively for me to let go because I've been working on it for so long.
When do you think? When do you think it'll be out? Sometime this year.
I don't know
Okay.
because I don't even know how I want to sell them. Like I don't even know how I want to release them, because it goes to that whole cliche, and I'm gonna shut up. But it's like, what's the price of art? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like I've had people buy something of mine for hundreds of dollars, and then there might be a kid who liked it, and I just gave it to them. You know what I mean? And it didn't make me feel like one way or the other.
All right.
So I gotta figure out if this is something I want to give away or if it's something I want to like sell. But hey, man, it's a
Well,
grind.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Art Hurts.
Yes.
Be on the lookout. All the music projects. You want to plug in your social medias real quick?
Yeah, Wes Felton, DC. You can just find me. WesFelton, DC. And then my art page is Alt Black, DC.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.